Well, good morning, everybody. As we start a new week here, I thought it'd be kind of fun to kind of dig into two neat things that happened last week on radar first and then on satellite second. And then we'll get into this high impact weather system, which is a part of a sequence of high impact weather systems for the U.S. Okay, you've been watching the animation. This is the radar that is near Grand Island, Nebraska. So the blue line across the top is Interstate 80, just for reference. Now, there's a whole lot of interesting stuff on this radar animation that's all coming from what we call clear air echo, non-meteorological targets. For example, you see the blue line again, that would be Interstate 80. Now, it's kind of in an approximate location. If you notice, there are certain echoes that kind of seem to line up with the interstate. Turns out that because of the way that the radar beam leaves the dish, you get what's called a side lobe. This is a part of the radar beam that is outside of the main focused beam, but you can get an echo off of objects that it hits. And some of that side lobe energy gets down near the ground and bounces off of the traffic on the interstate. So we can see that. Secondly, this is a large wind farm right here just next to Blue Hill, which is where the radar is located. And you can see the echoes off of the tops of the wind turbine blades. But what's kind of all scattered, and it seems to be a bit random across the image, these are actually birds. And so migratory birds this time of year show up very well on radar. They also do this quite well in fall. And we get to see all the birds all over the place here. What I really like about it is there's a lake here and another lake there. You can actually see the birds going into the lake. I don't know. I find that fascinating. Okay, so now that we've taken a bit of a look here at some radar data, I want to show you a satellite loop. Now this satellite loop, let's move this out of the way again. This satellite loop here is back off of the West Coast, and the day is the 24th, okay, February 24th. And I saw a few of my friends, meteorologists that are on social media, on Twitter, tweeting about this. I'm like, I've got to go grab that animation because it was interesting. The atmosphere painted out the number 76. Do you see it? There's this large clear area here. Looks like the number 7. Very interesting cloud structure to give us that. And then here, notice curling up with this deep cutoff low that's way off the West Coast. Looks like the number 6. We all started goofing around about it, of course, like, oh, what does it mean? It doesn't mean anything. It's just there's a tightly wound low here and a nice big open spot between where this, what we call this marine stratocumulus layer is. And just a fascinating satellite animation. And the other neat thing about it is, we got early in the day here a pretty good view of the western snowpack, which we did a deeper dive into last week on Friday as to what the western snowpack kind of looks like this year with respect to normal. Now listen, what will be changing a lot in this next, let's call it 10 to 15 days, is the snowpack in the Cascades, the snowpack in the Northern Rockies, and the snowpack in the Klamath Mountains, the snowpack in the Sierra Nevada. I mean, we're really going to be hitting the West Coast quite hard with the flow that's coming up. And the first wave right now looks something like this. Now, remember last week I told you that it was the phasing between the polar branch of the jet, which is here, and the subtropical branch of the jet that is here, and how this faster piece coming around the base of the Aleutian Islands was going to interact with that cutoff low you just saw on satellite and pull it inward. These two features are very well timed right now. And what this means is the potential for this system as it goes racing across the country, and yes, it's going to move fast, for producing severe weather, a sharp gradient in temperature, be one of those higher impact systems, it's there. And we're just not done. I can at least find you 3 more systems lined up in the Pacific Ocean as we finish February and begin March that we're going to have to keep a very close eye on, okay? So this is how we're diagnosing this. This is what I look at. What we're going to watch in these wind field maps here, okay? This is jet stream level winds. Pressure is 250 millibars where this is. So this is about 6 miles above your head. When I tell you that the waves are phased, I'm talking about this, that trough in the polar jet, and then this piece of the subtropical jet giving us this jet streak. That's going right at the base of that trough. Now, what does this all do? This gives us an extra kick right here in giving us very strong upper level divergence. In other words, dynamically, this jet streak, the curves in the flow, and even this jet streak, it's a bit weaker, but going over the next ridge downstream, all produce upper level divergence and therefore a rapidly deepening low here. But what I want to tell you is this low has the way that the two waves are working together. There is no reason for it to slow down. I guess what I'm trying to say here is If this wave became very negatively tilted and you saw the fastest winds zip around like this, then all of a sudden the thing curls up, moves straight north. Not this case. This is really going to just scream on off to the east. Dynamically forced fast. That's what it's going to do. All right, that's system number 1. Tuesday into Wednesday, severe weather threat in this area. We'll talk about the snow behind it in a second. So that goes on off to New England. All right. Now behind this is the 28th. This is Wednesday. We see the next wave coming into the west. So one leaves. We have a little short wave that goes right through the middle here. This was not well resolved in the GFS last week. It is much better resolved this week. Now the model we're looking at is the European, but that's been the one that's been most consistent with that wave. So now we'll see that one sneak right across the mid-south and get into the southeast. And then here's the wave that follows it. Much deeper trough than the previous. Goes down and taps into the subtropical jet. Now watch this. This wave, this is Sunday, getting into Monday. Now, do you see the difference? I've got a closed low here in the upper levels. The wave has got this orientation, which we call this a negative tilt. The previous one was straight up and down. Now this wave, therefore, is going to start to make this hard turn, slow down, and go toward the north on the 4th and 5th and 6th. So see that? The previous one went from here to here in a day and a half. This one takes 4 days to go from here to there. So the orientation of the wave, the speed coming around the base of the jet, and whether or not the jet is digging or lifting all determine how fast the system's going to go. And that is just the next 2. Actually, there's 3 in there, but this is the second big one. We'll kind of call the one that's going to sneak through the mid-south into the southeast, not such a potent system. And then we're not done yet. We have another one coming in around the 6th, 7th, and 8th. See it? So we could make an argument that I even see more following that, but I'll get into the ensembles to give you an idea on those things. So here this morning, 5:35, winter storm warnings line the Cascades, line the Northern Rockies. Winter weather advisories farther to the south. That'll change for the Sierra Nevada soon. All the rest of the shades of color you have here are about wind. It's either excessive wind watches and warnings. We're looking at high winds coming off the peaks of the Rockies. And then extending out here through parts of the western Corn Belt and the high plains, this is all red flag warning. So drier conditions as of late, combined with very strong winds, mean that we are going to be running the risk of any sort of fire activity spreading quickly. Then to the north, we've already got wind chill advisory here, winter weather advisory there, and a winter storm watch up here in this part of the Red River. So this, like I said, pretty potent system coming through here in the near term. I wanted to start on the wind side of this, if you don't mind. So picking this up this morning at 6 a.m. on Monday, the high-res NAM playing through the rest of Monday, getting into Tuesday. I'll just go ahead and take this all the way out. This is what we're expecting when you accumulate wind gusts. So in other words, this is what happens when you just try to measure up over time the fastest wind and just keep track of it. Does that make sense? So it's not like it's going to stay this windy the whole time, but there's a lot of 40 to 50 mile an hour winds in here and then coming off of the mountains. See that? That's where you have your downslope effect, and we're going to get winds in some places there that could be 60 to maybe 80 miles an hour at times. So this system coming through has got quite a push to it, and so does the one following it. That'll change the west for us. But I want you to see how quickly the temperatures are going to change. Watch this. This is 6 a.m. this morning. Now we're going to watch a sizable warm sector open up. Look at that. Now there's wind barbs in the background here. Can you see them? So this will likely be the position of a dry line. So the winds are coming out of the west here with dry conditions. They're coming up out of the southwest here, which means they're going to have a lot of moisture in this. And then there's going to be this warm front that right now is way, way, way up here. But what will happen with time is, this is through noon today, is as the system really begins to wind itself up. Here we are. This is now Tuesday morning at 7 a.m., getting into the middle of the day tomorrow. That low has already quickly progressed up toward the UP. Remember, that's where we had our best upper level divergence. And here comes a very powerful cold front. Now, what's interesting is there might be a secondary spin up of a low right here. So we could have 2 lows with this system. And as that one comes through, it's going to have both the connection on the dry line and the warm front, which could sneak right in through here. There's actually going to be 2 different warm fronts with this system. And it's the one to the south, right in through this area, that I'm going to be most curious about watching for the potential for severe weather, especially rotating storms. The best wind shear will be in this area. The low-level jet is pretty far to the south in this case, so I'm going to be watching for any influence on the northern edge of that low-level jet to hit this region. And I'm also just excited about it because I got to fly to Boston tomorrow. So I live in Champaign. I'll drive to Chicago. I got a 5 o'clock out. Now, this is just me personally, the nerdy side of me, all right? I don't wish severe weather on any part of the country, but I sure would love to fly over some pretty massive storms as I head out toward Boston. And so we'll have to wait and see if we get anything in this area. Now, again, forgive me for having that tone with the weather, but it's just fascinating to someone like me to see that. Now watch. This is 8 o'clock tomorrow. If you have ever wanted a lesson in finding a cold front, it is right here. This front's sliding through, and it is, really just going to drop temperatures off in a hurry. So we could go from temperatures, look at this. Let's get into Tuesday. How about right here? We're in the 70s, 80s, probably 90 down here. 70s, though. You're going to go from 70s to, according to the model, 6 a.m. tomorrow, Iowa, Illinois, Missouri. We're going to be down here knocking on the door of the teens. That's how cold. That's a big swing in temperatures coming with this system. All right. What are we looking at in terms of severe weather? Today, we're going to keep an eye in this area, part of Indiana, Ohio, and Michigan. There's a marginal risk of severe storms, but it's tomorrow that same area plus more of Illinois to Missouri gets tucked away right in that triple point of that second low, the one farther to the south, that has the potential for kind of ripping off some pretty nasty storms. Based on what I know early this morning on Monday, I'm going to keep a lot of attention, I think, more in this area for with respect to, rotating storms, the type that can be supercellular and produce tornadoes. So what are the models seeing with this? Now you got to understand something. When we go through winter time frame, which we've been in now for a while, I can show you with confidence like this high-res NAM. I show you the first 5 days about the GFS and the European with confidence. When we move into the time of year where convection, thunderstorms dominate the pattern, the models can't handle it. It's a resolution issue. Actually, modeling convection is extremely challenging in the model because it's a cloud scale problem. It's not a big, synoptic scale issue. So we're just going to have to use the model as an approximation and combine this with some of our meteorological skill to get it down pat. Decent snows throughout parts of the Canadian Prairie over toward Ontario. This is by 3 o'clock this afternoon on Monday. Heavy snows moving through parts of the Pacific Northwest, really driven by topography here, but some locally heavy snows coming out of this system. Then we get into tonight. This is now Monday night, working our way into Tuesday morning. So about the time I'm recording tomorrow morning and releasing the video, this is what I think we'll see. Already the conversion over to snow here, all the way down to the Front Range, back up to the Red River of the North, even northern Minnesota here. And then we play this forward. So can you see the two lows? There's one here, and there is one there. And as the model opens that up, the warm front right in through here is where I'm concerned about the risk of severe weather. Now, the main cold frontal boundary is tucked away on the northern low. So this low down here, remember, this is drier air that's going to be working its way into this region, not colder air yet. And so what we'll have to watch is if we can get storms to pop off on that drier boundary and also on the warm front. And you can kind of see those two areas I identified there. And those are the same spots the Storm Prediction Center is keeping a very close eye on. Now, that's not to ignore any scattered storms we have outside of this, even the risk of ice in Ontario, and the heavy snows are going to follow this with very strong winds. But Tuesday night, that front slides through. Look at this. Rapid conversion over to snow, probably. So you could see a 50-degree swing in temperatures, severe storms followed by snow before the sun rises on Wednesday. And that system pushes east and gives us this pencil-thin line of convection. It appears by Wednesday that goes all the way down here to Houston, clear to Buffalo, and that'll continue to move east. But we only get 60 hours from the high-res NAM, so we can't even capture the next system that's coming through. To do that, I got to switch over to the GFS versus the Euro. Now, let's get up to that point. This is now getting through Tuesday morning, Tuesday midday, Tuesday evening. Very similar setup in the models, right? This looks very similar to what you just saw in the NAM. and that system rolls through. High pressure, cold air comes behind it. This cold air does not last long. What happens after that, though, on Wednesday into Thursday, that low curls up to New England. Watch the quick conversion over to snow here. And remember, while we watch for the next big wave here, there's a little sneaky one that comes out in both the models right there. So this is now the 29th, Thursday. And that low comes out of Texas and Oklahoma. And if this high can get out to open ocean fast, it will return good flow. And as that occurs through parts of the Mid-South, and then in the Southeast, we'll be talking about thunderstorms late this week, and that system will roll through. So remember, last week the European had this, the GFS did not. Now, in the meantime, our next deep wave, let's go back to Thursday of this week, comes in the northwest. Big snows for the Cascades, northern Rockies. You then see snow coming out right here on the low that's going to move through parts of the Canadian prairie. But then the much broader low dives all the way down into California and Nevada by this weekend. This is Saturday midday, and it ejects. Now remember the difference? The first wave was open with the speed max coming in like this, right? This wave has got negative tilt to it, and the speed max is coming around the base. So what does this low do? As this low shows up right here, it just curls up slowly and moves to the north and brings in a pretty sizable threat for ice. Good overrunning setup. Snow could stretch all the way from Saskatchewan down to Arizona out of this next system, and it curls itself up there. Very windy conditions early next week. I'm talking pretty widespread winds of, we could be seeing another 30 to 40 mile an hour consistent day in the midsection of the country. And that sucker rolls itself up next Monday into Tuesday. And look at it move across. Now look at this. Do you notice? Kind of blur your eyes and look at both images. That is really good agreement all the way out there to next Wednesday the 6th. I love it to see that. In fact, it's going to be funny. I will be in Indiana when that front comes over here for that Tuesday for a big all-day ag outlook with WILL. So we'll have to see what we end up getting out of this. All right, sorry we had to slow down and look at this, but there's 3 big systems inside of 8 or 9 days that we have to take account of. So let's go ahead and add it up. This would be the precip side of things first. That's through this Friday. This is through Sunday into Sunday night. I'm going to stop it there 1 week out. This is the GFS. Now, some of the bigger differences I see in the GFS are along the West Coast, especially into California and Oregon. Much heavier precip in the GFS. In fact, we can see if we compare the models there, they are much wetter. But here's another side of it, the snowy side of it. That is, let's go out there, 168 hours. That's a full week. That's a full week's worth of snow from the European. So we're talking 40 to 60 inches that line up from the Sierra Nevada to the Cascades. Pretty widespread 2-foot event in the Northern Rockies. Couldn't be happier about that. And the GFS is just snowier. That's just all I can tell you. There's the European, there's the GFS. But good, look at this. Look at the agreement here. That's the Euro. That's the GFS. The only difference is the GFS with that second system, the one that's coming through, when is that one? The 5th, 6th, 7th? It wants to dip some, no, that's too far out. When is that snow getting there? Oh my, this is with the first system. I'm sorry. This would be the 28th into the 29th. That's the one that's bringing the snow behind it with the GFS here, timed up with the time of day. That's why it's got the streaks in through it. I'm sorry. It probably does this again. There it is. That's the next one. That's the 5th, 6th, and 7th. I love the GFS. It's such a great model. All right, let's get back to it. Sorry, that weather patterns like this get nerds like me just, it's fun for us. This is what we studied for me for 25 years, trying to learn how to forecast this. So to see it play out again is just exciting for me. Okay, where do I want to see this snow get? Well, we still need more here. We still need more across Montana and Northern Rockies. Good. We need to pack up more also in California. Believe it or not, I'd like to see better snow here. The fact that we could see some snow in Minnesota coming out of the Red River of the North, excellent as well, given the deficits there. But the reality of it is this is where you are season to date on snowfall. Such mild conditions have really kind of ruined a lot of this. I also want to mention to you that with that system coming out on the 3rd and the 4th, right there, the risk of ice coming out of North Dakota, maybe Minnesota, but here into, I don't think it's really going to get Saskatchewan, but it might get over into Manitoba and Ontario. Please be aware of the potential for ice. We'll continue to investigate that this week. But from here, I do want to get to some probability maps because this is where I think the power is in the forecast. I do it every forecast video. So here's the chance of an inch of snow from the European model through the next 10 days. Here's the chance of 3 inches. Okay. We step it up to 6. Look at that. Man, do we need this bad. Remember, that's 3 systems that could come through here in the next 10 days to give us this. And here's the chance of 12. That is filling in a donut hole that we've had. Now watch out west. There's 18. Here's 24. Here's 36 and 48. I mean, yeah, we're looking at good snows for the Sierra Nevada and Cascades. On the drier side of this is the chance at getting less than 1/10 of an inch. Now, if you remember last week, we were looking at a large area in through here that was going to be drier. But now with these systems tapping into more of that polar branch of the jet, we've kind of isolated this down here to this part of the panhandles and surrounding areas. So eastern Colorado, a lot of Kansas, and New Mexico. That's where we're not getting the moisture. So you're saying, what does it take to get moisture there? I got to get a low to come out like this, take on negative tilt, and sit and spin right on the front range. Then we draw all that moisture in and fix all those problems. Or we wait until we get into May when the dry line moves off every day and just rips off storms in this area. That's what we'll wait for as well. Let's go from there to the wetter side of this. Who has the high probability of getting over 1 inch? There you go. And over 2 inches of liquid in the west. Okay. All right, from here, take a look. I'm going to get you out a week on the upper level height pattern, and then watch this. This is the 4th. Here's that next system. That one rips through. 4th and 5th go straight toward Minnesota, Ontario. And do we lose the pattern on the 7th, 8th, and 9th? No. There's still broad troughing over the west that dips down. And watch this, coming out of Alaska, dipping into the west about the 10th, 11th, and 12th. We don't seem to be able to shake the western trough pattern. This could set March up to be very, very active. So that means expect volatile temperatures and a whole lot of flow that wants to do that. And that's what you need. Southwest flow coming off the mountains cures drought issues in the midsection of the country. So week 2 precipitation, wetter, wetter, wetter in all 3 models. It's just a break for this area. You'll get back into the flow very soon. A little bit of a break for the west, but much of the rest of the country sees activity. I'm excited about this because this is where we've been since the beginning of February. And what you just saw is systems finally coming through to this section of the country, getting into New England, bringing rain into the southeast up to the mid-Atlantic, drier areas. We're also hitting parts of the mid-south. And it's going to start, remember, with these next 2 systems hitting the northwest, which is where we need to add up more snow. This is everything that I want in a pattern leading into a growing season, because it will help to cure some of the issues with our soil moisture. And this is the latest 100 centimeter or 40-inch soil moisture percentile. There's a lot of places here that need a major push toward recharge before we start planting a crop. All right, on the temperature side of it, one of the questions I'm going to be working on this week is, I've been asked many times in the last week, does this mean anything? This very, very warm winter. There is, and I understand it, there's kind of an interesting psychology to forecasting where a lot of times we feel as though when we go from one extreme that the atmosphere wants to give us the other extreme. And so I've had questions, does this warm February mean a really cold April? Am I going to be delayed in planting? And I've also heard, is this warm February going to mean extremely hot summer? Because a lot of folks remember how warm March was in 2012, and there was a reason March was so warm in 2012, given that we had such high pressure that was helping to build in heat every day, kind of flanking the southeastern United States. We're going to investigate all of that and walk through those things. I don't have the answer for you today. I need a little more time to answer them, but we will figure this out. But this is where, excuse me, this is where we currently are in terms of our temperatures. And we've got a shot of cold air coming through, but watch these temperatures here. There's Monday's highs. There's Tuesday. Look at this. Holy smokes. We get into Wednesday, and then the Arctic air comes blasting through, but that's just it. It blasts through. And then by Thursday into Friday, that cold air exits southeast, and we're back up by the end of the week in the 60s in this area. So what does that mean? Let's just review this real quick. 70 today. Tuesday, Wednesday, highs in the 30s. So just looking at high temperature alone, that's a 40-degree swing. And then by the end of the week, we go right back up again to 70. So you will see in your high temperatures alone a 40 to 45 degree swing in temperatures in the midsection of the country. But look at the west. That cold signal is there for a while. Now, I'm not worried about a frost at this point in the Central Valley of California, but day 5 through 10, day 10 through 15, we keep the west cooler and the east warmer. We're not shaking this pattern. It's even there in the European model as well. So how long does this last into March? And what I'm talking about here is this, jet stream wanting to do this. That's going to be the real tricky question to try to answer as we go forward. There is one thing I'm watching. The MJO, which collapsed, it's been here for a while, is maybe expected by early March to get out in phase 4. Now, how strong of a signal that is will tell us how long this pattern lasts. But look, phase 4 in March, Western Trough. Now, this isn't the same, but there is some sense of a Western Trough, which means phase 4 doesn't demolish the pattern we're in, so it might push it farther into the middle of the month. What I am most concerned about, to be honest with you, if any sort of large area of high latitude blocking begins to show up. And if that happens, then I get worried about colder air coming back. But at this stage, this is what the CPC released on Friday for March 9th through the 22nd. And if that doesn't look exactly like what I've been telling you for weeks here, remember I've been giving you these analogs, cooler, mild, wetter, slightly drier, wetter, drier. I mean, this looks just like their newest forecast. I love it. Things are falling into place overall. Now, that doesn't guarantee they're going to be right, but they're kind of falling into place. And remember, the newest European model gave us this. Just released yesterday. This is their forecast for the month of March in terms of precipitation anomalies. Temperature-wise, very similar to what I showed you last week. Okay, let's leave that there, and let's talk a bit about South America, and then I'm going to finish with some stuff on El Nino. In South America, we got the latest report in Mato Grosso of harvest progress. We are still above the 5-year average, about where we were a year ago. Safrinha corn is going in pretty quickly, 80% done. Average is about, 73. Okay, so we're 7% ahead of normal, almost 8% ahead of normal. So as we look out there, we do see that most of the Cerrado, getting up on the Amazon here, is drier. We're wetter in the east, and we're wetter in northern Argentina and parts of southern Brazil. It is important to note that Cordoba down toward Buenos Aires is showing up a bit drier in this forecast. The longer term continues to show that this month could favor drier conditions coming out of the Amazon here. And I'll say it again, I'm worried about April being drier in this area too. But the models have just left what they've got now out there for the rest of the month and just said wetter here, wetter there, drier in the middle. And that's been a very consistent picture painted by the models. So from here, I just want to finish off with two things. Global outlook. I want to just show you that over the next 10 days, we're quite dry in and around this part of Russia, Kazakhstan, getting into Turkey, Ukraine, around the Black Sea, but wetter around Italy and the Alps. We are quite wet right into this area here. This is around Pakistan. I always get concerned when I see wet anomalies here for flooding. It's also very wet where the MJO is currently sitting here in northern Australia, the Northern Territory, and also Western Australia. But we're quite dry over here in parts of like Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria. So we need to watch this carefully as they start to transition toward their, toward their fall time frame in that area. Temperature-wise, globally, we've knocked out some of the extremely cold conditions that have been in China lately. Also in this part of Russia too, and this is what's helped invigorate the Pacific jet stream. But just take note of that area around Pakistan where you saw the really wet conditions. It's also quite sharp contrast in temperatures, while Europe maintains its very mild bias, which it's had now for a while. One last thing I want to tell you about. Our current sea surface temperature map looks like El Nino is really cranking. But you might see on this map some pretty significant change in the next month. And I want to be very careful about what that change means. And this is what I'm concerned about. As I blow this up here, this is the ocean surface from South America to Indonesia, and this is going down in depth. What we notice here is that since January, cooler water has been trying to surface in this area. It's not quite there yet. It's about 10 meters below the surface. But when that shows up, it's going to punch a hole right in through here. And you're going to start to hear a lot of folks making some pretty bold claims about that hole. And we just need to understand that, remember, these ocean temperatures and their cyclical behavior with respect to finishing an El Nino and starting a La Nina It's more about what the wind field on top of it is doing for our weather patterns, okay? I will continue to stress this idea throughout the remainder of this week, actually throughout March, and we'll just watch it all evolve. But that's it. That's a lot I had for you today, but hopefully you found it fun and entertaining. Good way to kick off a new week, and we'll speak again in the morning. Thanks.